My name is James Roberts, and welcome to 7 News, where we the media manipulate your minds as much as possible because your reaction is funny. Next up is our weekly interviews, where King Louis XVI will be joining us because we are so unpopular that we interview dead people. Now to hand you over to professional interviewer Stefan Williams. Thank you, James. Today we will be joined by a very famous man. Everyone give it up for the last King of France, King Louis XVI. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be on your show, Stefan. No worries, Louis. Can I call you Louis? I'll call you Louis. So anyway, let's get started on this interview. Are you ready? I'm ready. Okay, Louis, could you tell me a bit about your childhood? Well, I was born on the 23rd of August, 1754. I had a difficult childhood because my parents ignored me and didn't care. This was because they favoured my older brother, Louis Duc de Bourgonais. It was hard for me as they were too distracted with him than to even realise I existed. In 1761, my brother died at the age of 10, which caused my parents to despise me even more. Worse came to worse when my father passed from lung tuberculosis on the 20th of December, 4 years after my brother had passed. This then put me into next in line of heir to the throne. At the age of 13, my mother fell into a deep depression after my father's death until she was struck by the same illness that killed my father and passed away on the 13th of March 1767. After this, me and my other orphan siblings were looked after and cared for by my grandma, who died a year later. That must have been a very hard childhood. Speaking of childhoods, did you ever envy your brother in any way? Of course I envied him. The way my parents paid more attention to him and despised of me, how I was nothing compared to him. This caused my childhood to be so difficult because my parents neglected me. Even after the death, it's like they disliked me even more. What were your thoughts on marriage at such an early age? Well, I was only 15 when it had been arranged that I would get married to Marie Antoinette. Because of my shyness and also my fear of manipulation of Mary, I was made to appear cowardly in a way to her in public, making the marriage distant. Over the years we grew closer, eventually having 4 children. Unfortunately, only one survived as the other 3 died in childhood. That is so sad. I'm so sorry. I got married at 29. I don't even think I had a girlfriend at 15. Next up, what was it like becoming king after the death of your grandfather and not originally being heir to the throne? It was 1774, 10th of May, when I became King Louis XVI, after the tragic death of my grandfather. As you already know, my older and more favoured brother was supposed to be king until he faced a tragic death as a child. This then put me next in line to be king after my father, until my father died, leaving me heir to the throne. As I was only 20, I was very immature and inexperienced. Although my aims were to be a good and respected king, all of the debt and financial problems I inherited from my grandfather made being a good king difficult. Do you think you were a respected king? Well, before the revolution, many rich people and nobles respected me. But the third estates, which were the peasants, would disagree. This was because of my selfish acts as a king. By increasing the tax rate for the third estate only, the money was shared between the royal, rich and nobles, leaving the third estate, who were the majority of the French people, with less money and food. Because of my selfish and narrow-minded acts, the third estate did not respect me or care for me. We will be back after this short commercial.
What you do with your tax refund is entirely up to you. Like buying the pony your parents never got you. File your simple federal return for free. Ready, set, refund.
And we're back. Next up for your question. Did you even care for the citizens of France? While you were living the luxury life, they were working hard to survive and care for their families. I think because I was young and very foolish as a king, I was too selfish to even realise what was going on between the 3 estates, and not giving equal rights to every estate. Marie Antoinette and I were hung up on making more money and living the luxury life that we increased the taxes only for the peasants, which is the third estate, which is another reason for why the third estate had a hatred for me. It must have been so hard having so much responsibility at such a young age. Question 7. Do you think that it was your fault the French Revolution occurred? Why is this, and what actions might have caused this? I think as king, I played a big part of the cause of the French Revolution. This because of my selfish and foolish acts that I made, which caused the revolution in the first place. My foolish acts put the country into more debt, as I spent too much money in trying to help out in the American Revolution, which I failed to do so. This then forced me to increase the taxes for the third estate, in which the royal, rich and nobles would receive all of this money, leaving the third estate poor and extremely angry with me. With the country still being in debt, I had to turn to the nobles in 1787, but the nobles were shocked to hear about how bad the debt was and refused to help out, which showed that I had no power and that I had lost respect from the nobles as well. In 1789, I had no other choice but to call a meeting of the three estates. This was made up of representatives of each estate to gather and try to solve the debt problems and also bring everyone together. The meeting went horribly wrong, as the third estate decided to leave as they felt their rights at the meeting were not being accepted. The representatives of the third estate went off in another part of the castle to form a new National Constituent Assembly. It wasn't until the storming of the Bastille, where the revolutionaries, the third estate members, thought they could find ammunition, was when I knew the French Revolution had begun, and that I realized I had made a big mistake in my decisions as king. What happened to you and your family during the revolution? At first, I did not know how to stop the revolution. This may have been because of my lack of concentration when preparing to become a king. I made sure me and my family stayed alive by selfishly putting my life in front of everyone else, not caring about their well-being. I failed to protect my family when an angry mob of people, who were mostly women, from the third estate who were influenced by revolutionaries, marched into the Paris of Versailles, where my family and I were staying. During the night, they attempted to kill my wife, Mary Antoinette, but they did not succeed, although my family and I were taken back to Paris by the angry crowd to live in the Tuileries Palace. Talk me through your escape plan to keep yourself and your family safe, and did you succeed? In 1791, on the 21st of June, I attempted to secretly flee with my family as we dressed as bakers and made an escape to Austria. Because of the rumours of our escape, we were easily recognised and captured near the borders of Germany. We will return to Paris to face many angry and disappointed people who had lost all their respect for me and my family. And last question, what was the consequence of your escape and the terrible things you did as king? As of September 21st, 1792, the Legislative Assembly announced the First French Republic. This put me out of my power as king. I was then shortly trialed by the National Assembly, pleading guilty for treason, and was sentenced to death. On January 21st, 1793, I was guillotined in the Place de la Révolution. My wife, Mary Antoinette, faced the same brutal punishment 9 months later and was killed on October 16th of 1973. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for having me. One more round of applause for King Louis XVI. Back to you, James. What a wonderful interview. That's all for the news today. See you next time in 7 News.